Welcome to the Angular HTTP and APIs Masterclass. This comprehensive guide covers essential topics like HTTP client, RxJS, interceptors, and security, equipping you with production-ready knowledge and interview skills. The course agenda is divided into 20 sections. We'll start with HTTP fundamentals, move through HTTP client setup, CRUD operations, and advanced topics like interceptors, JWT auth, and enterprise architecture, concluding with over 110 interview Q&A. Our first section dives into HTTP fundamentals. We will explore what HTTP and REST are, understand various status codes, and examine the request lifecycle. This foundational knowledge is essential for both production and interview readiness. HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is the backbone of web communication. Here is a high-level view of an Angular application interacting with a REST API server and database, passing through interceptors for various functions. Remember that responses flow back through the same chain. Understanding HTTP status codes is crucial. We categorize them into 2XX for success, 4XX for client errors like invalid data or missing resources, and 5XX for server errors such as crashes or overload. Knowing these helps debug API interactions efficiently. Here is a comparison of different API styles: REST, SOAP, and GraphQL. Each has its strengths, from REST's URL-based resources, ideal for CRUD apps, to GraphQL's schema-typed queries for complex UIs. Choose the right style for your specific use case. Next, we move to the Angular HTTP client. This section covers setup, methods, architecture, dependency injection, and best practices. Mastering HTTP client is key to efficient and reliable data fetching in Angular applications. We explore HTTP client setup using both the modern standalone approach and the traditional NG module approach. Key benefits include observables for lazy requests, strong TypeScript typing, interceptors for middleware, and robust testing capabilities. The API service utilizes modern DI with the inject function and centralizes the base URL from the environment. Examples demonstrate all standard HTTP client methods: get, post, put, patch, and delete, along with handling full responses including headers. For GET requests, it's best to use "HTTP params" for safe and automatic encoding of filters, pagination, and sorting. This service returns typed responses, and the component should handle the subscription using the async pipe for optimal lifecycle management. Avoid manual URL building and subscribing within the service. Post requests are for creating resources. We emphasize the DTO pattern for data integrity and secure communication, defining separate models for the domain, creation input, updates, and sanitized API output. PUT is for full resource replacement, requiring all fields, while patch is for partial updates, only sending changed fields. We also look at delete patterns, covering both hard, permanent, and soft recoverable deletion methods, and bulk deletion via the request body. In service layer architecture, we explore patterns essential for large applications. We cover the base service, repository, facade, and feature-based approaches. Implementing these patterns ensures scalability and maintainability in your codebase. The base API service provides abstract-typed HTTP methods used by feature services, which implement the repository pattern. The facade pattern aggregates multiple services, simplifying interactions for components. The DTO pattern prevents overposting sensitive data. A well-structured enterprise folder structure is key for scalability. Organize your application into core, feature, and shared modules. Utilize path aliases and barrel exports for cleaner imports, and rely on environment files for configurable API URLs. Welcome to the section on RxJS with HTTP client. We'll cover essential operators, memory management, streams, and best practices. This is vital for writing clean, efficient, and reactive Angular code. This slide provides a master guide to 8 crucial RxJS operators. Pay close attention to the mapping operators. Use switch map for read operations to cancel in-flight requests, exhaust map for idempotent write operations to ignore subsequent clicks, and concat map when request order must be strictly preserved. Memory leaks from unmanaged subscriptions are a major issue. We compare 3 solutions: the Angular async pipe for automatic unsubscription in templates, the modern take-until destroyed operator, and the classic take-until with a subject for older Angular versions. Next, we deep dive into interceptors, covering authentication, logging, error handling, loading spinners, caching, retries, and token refresh. Interceptors are key to centralizing cross-cutting concerns in your application. Interceptors form a pipeline, processing requests from left to right and responses from right to left. We examine the code for an auth interceptor, adding a bearer token, and an error interceptor for centralized error handling and notifications. We look at 3 more practical interceptors: loader for global spinners using finalize, caching for quick responses using tap, and retry with exponential backoff for transient errors. Remember, the correct order of operations in the pipeline matters. Token refresh interceptor handles 401 errors seamlessly by refreshing the access token. It uses switch map to chain the refresh logic and ensures concurrent 401's queue on a behavior subject, preventing multiple refresh requests. Section 11 focuses on JWT authentication and token flow. We'll examine access and refresh tokens, secure storage options, and implementing auth guards for robust security. JWTs are composed of a header, payload, and signature. The payload is readable. Never store secrets there. For token storage, use in-memory variables for access tokens and HTTP-only cookies for refresh tokens to mitigate XSS and CSRF risks. Now, let's explore global API error handling. We'll categorize error types, map statuses, and use a central error service and monitoring to ensure a consistent user experience and easy debugging. A production-grade error interceptor centrally catches HTTP errors. It maps common statuses like 401, 403, and 500 to user notifications and logs all exceptions to a monitoring service, ensuring no critical error goes unnoticed. In the next section, we look at the global API response model. Standardizing the API response structure with an API response, wrapper simplifies data access and centralized error checking across all service calls. Here we dive into file upload and progress tracking. We cover single and multiple uploads, drag and drop implementation, and the efficient method of using S3 pre-signed URLs. This code demonstrates using form data for standard uploads and a switch map pattern for S3 pre-signed URL uploads. Remember, always validate file type and size on the client side, and revalidate on the server side for security. Finally, we conclude with essential security best practices for Angular applications. We will cover XSS, CSRF, CORS, token security, input validation, and the mandatory use of HTTPS. Angular provides built-in defenses against XSS and CSRF. Always enforce HTTPS with HSTS and store tokens securely in memory, avoiding local storage due to XSS vulnerability. Section 18 covers enterprise architecture, focusing on production configuration, interceptor order, lazy loading, and route guards. This sets the stage for building scalable, enterprise-grade Angular applications. This complete production configuration shows the proper setup for _app.config, TS. It includes strategic routing with preloading, an organized interceptor pipeline, CSRF configuration, and global error handling, establishing a robust application foundation. We now begin Section 19, Interview Questions. This final section provides key answers on HTTP client, RxJS, interceptors, auth, and security, making sure you are fully prepared for your next Angular interview. These are must-know HTTP client fundamentals. Understand why HTTP client is preferred over fetch, the difference between _provide HTTP client and HTTP client module the immutability of HTTP params and how observe. Response gives you headers and status codes. Mastering RxJS operators is essential. Know the mapping operators like switch map, merge map, concat map, and exhaust map, and how to use fork join for parallel requests. Also, distinguish between tap, for side effects, and map, for value transformation. For interceptors, understand their execution order and the immutability of HTTP request requiring requeue.clone for modification. Use signal headers to skip interceptors and finalize, instead of tap, for robust loader management. In JWT and auth, be able to describe the 3 parts of a JWT and explain the secure storage strategy, access tokens in memory and refresh tokens in HTTP-only cookies. You should also know how to implement automatic token refresh and route protection. For architecture and production readiness, understand the repository and facade patterns. Know how to structure a large Angular application and the methods for handling API versioning and testing components using HTTP client testing module . Production deployment checklist summarizes all critical concerns. Ensure all API concerns, interceptor setup, authentication flow, RxJS memory management, security, and performance optimizations are addressed before going live. Here are the key takeaways from the entire video. We covered best practices for HTTP client, the interceptor chain order, RxJS operators, secure JWT handling, robust error handling, scalable architecture, and file upload strategies. Congratulations, you are now production ready. You have mastered the skills needed to build secure, scalable, and high-performance enterprise Angular applications, and you are prepared for advanced technical interviews.